In a quiet corner of rural America, surrounded by rolling green hills and dense forests, stood a small military base. This was home to Sergeant Emily Carter, a dedicated and skilled K-9 handler who had earned her stripes through years of hard work and determination. Her companions were not ordinary dogs, but two highly trained German shepherds named Max and Luna. These dogs were more than just animals. They were her partners, her teammates, and an extension of herself. Together, they formed an unbeatable trio, capable of handling some of the most dangerous missions. Emily's life revolved around her work. From dawn till dusk, she trained with Max and Luna, teaching them advanced commands, honing their instincts, and building unbreakable trust. The bond between them was incredible. Max could sense danger before it arrived, while Luna's sharp nose could detect even the faintest scent hidden beneath layers of debris. They weren't just pets or tools. They were soldiers in their own right, serving alongside humans to protect and serve. Despite her achievements, Emily often found herself facing doubters. Many people still believed that jobs like hers belonged only to men. Being a woman in such a physically demanding field made her stand out, and not always in a good way. Some dismissed her abilities outright, assuming she couldn't handle the pressure or the strength required for the job. But Emily never let those opinions get to her. Instead, she poured all her energy into proving them wrong, day after day, mission after mission. One sunny afternoon, Emily decided to take a rare break from her routine. With Max and Luna by her side, she drove to a nearby diner nestled along a winding road. It was a popular spot for travelers, truckers, and locals alike. The air smelled of fresh coffee and fried food, and the chatter of patrons filled the space. Emily chose a table outside, where she could relax under the shade of a large umbrella. As she sipped her steaming cup of coffee, she watched Max and Luna settle down beside her, their eyes scanning the area instinctively. The peace didn't last long. A loud roar broke the calm as a group of bikers pulled into the parking lot. Their motorcycles rumbled like thunder, drawing everyone's attention. Leather-clad and tattooed, the gang exuded an intimidating aura. At the center of the group was Razor, their leader, a tall, muscular man with a thick beard and piercing eyes. He scanned the area until his gaze landed on Emily and her dogs. His lips curled into a smirk, and he nudged his buddies, pointing toward her. "Look at this," Razor said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "The little girl playing soldier. What's next? Are your puppies gonna fetch us some fries too?" His friends burst into laughter, clearly amused by his taunts. Other customers glanced nervously at Emily, expecting her to react angrily. But she simply took another sip of her coffee, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her upset. However, Max and Luna weren't so calm. Sensing their handler's tension, they rose to their feet, their bodies stiff and alert, ready to defend her if needed. The scene grew tense as the bikers continued their mockery, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Little did they know, Emily and her dogs were about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The bikers' laughter echoed through the parking lot, drawing curious glances from other diners. Razor, clearly enjoying the attention, strutted over to Emily's table with a swagger that screamed arrogance. His heavy boots thudded against the pavement as he approached, his shadow looming over her small frame. "Hey, sweetheart," he sneered, leaning down slightly. "You really think those dogs are anything special? Looks like you're just borrowing them for show." His tone was dripping with mockery, and his gang hooted in approval from behind him. Emily didn't flinch. She kept her focus on her coffee cup, taking slow, deliberate sips. Inside, though, her mind raced. She knew better than to engage with someone like Razor, someone who thrived on chaos and intimidation. But she also felt a flicker of anger, not because of the insults aimed at her, but because of the way he dismissed Max and Luna. To her, they weren't just animals. They were heroes, trained warriors who had saved lives, including hers, more times than she could count. Still, she remained silent, choosing instead to let her dogs speak for themselves if it came to that. Max and Luna, however, were growing restless. Their ears perked up, and their muscles tensed as they locked eyes with Razor. They weren't snarling or barking yet, but their posture made it clear they were ready to act. The bikers noticed this too, though they didn't seem particularly concerned. One of them, a wiry man with a patch-covered vest, chuckled nervously. "Look at these mutts," he said, pointing at Max. "Think they'd even know what to do if we mess with them." Razor grinned, clearly loving the idea of testing Emily's so-called warriors. He turned back to her, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Come on, soldier girl. Let's see what your little guard dogs can do. Or are they all bark and no bite?" His words hung in the air, heavy with challenge. Emily finally looked up at him, her expression calm but firm. Her silence only seemed to fuel his bravado further. "Fine," Razor continued, stepping closer. "If they're so tough, why don't they prove it? Maybe I'll give them a little nudge to see how they react." With that, he reached out his hand toward Max, intending to grab the dog by the scruff of his neck. It was a reckless move, one born purely out of arrogance and ignorance. What Razor didn't realize was that Max wasn't an ordinary dog. He was a finely tuned machine, trained to respond instantly to threats. And in that moment, Razor had unknowingly crossed a line. Before anyone could blink, Max sprang into action. In a flash, he lunged forward, pinning Razor to the ground with precision and control. The biker let out a startled yelp as Max's teeth hovered inches from his throat, a clear warning not to move. The rest of the gang froze, their laughter dying in their throats. For a few heart-stopping seconds, there was nothing but stunned silence. Even the other customers at the diner stopped what they were doing, watching the scene unfold in disbelief. Luna stayed by Emily's side, her body coiled tightly, ready to leap if needed. Her low growl sent shivers down the spines of the bikers, who now realized they had underestimated both the dogs and their handler. Razor, still pinned beneath Max, stammered, "Oh, okay, call him off." His voice trembled, the cockiness drained completely from his face. Emily set her coffee cup down slowly, her movements deliberate. She stared at Razor for a long moment before speaking. "Apologize," she said simply, her voice steady and commanding. Razor hesitated, his pride warring with his fear, but when Max applied the slightest bit of pressure, he caved instantly. "I'm sorry," he blurted out, his apology rushed and panicked. Only then did Emily raise her hand, giving Max the signal to release Razor. The dog obeyed immediately, stepping back to stand beside Luna, his eyes still fixed on the shaken biker. As Razor scrambled to his feet, brushing dirt off his leather jacket, his gang stared at him in shock. Gone was the confident leader who had strutted into the parking lot moments ago. In his place stood a humbled man, visibly shaken by the encounter. The tables had turned, and everyone present knew it. Emily didn't say another word. She simply picked up her coffee cup again, took a sip, and gave Max and Luna a reassuring pat. The message was clear: never underestimate the power of respect, or the bond between a handler and her dogs. Razor's face burned with a mix of embarrassment and disbelief as he stood there, brushing off the dirt from his jacket. His gang was eerily quiet now, their earlier bravado replaced by wide-eyed stares. Some of them glanced nervously at Max and Luna, while others avoided eye contact altogether, clearly unsure of what to do next. Razor tried to play it cool, muttering under his breath about how nobody likes a show-off. But everyone could see the cracks in his tough guy facade. He had been humbled, and worse, in front of his own crew. Emily didn't press her advantage. Instead, she calmly sipped her coffee, letting the tension hang in the air. She knew better than to gloat. Gloating would only escalate things further. Her goal wasn't to embarrass Razor or his gang. It was to make them understand that respect wasn't something to be demanded but earned. And if they wanted to mock her or her dogs again, they'd have to think twice before doing so. But Razor wasn't ready to back down completely. Humiliation often brings out defiance in people, and Razor was no exception. After a moment of awkward silence, he straightened up, trying to regain some semblance of control. "All right," he said, forcing a smirk onto his face. "So your dog's got some bite. Big deal. Doesn't mean much unless you can prove it's not just luck." His words were shaky, but his tone carried a hint of challenge once more. One of the younger bikers chimed in, his voice tinged with curiosity rather than mockery this time. "Yeah, come on. Let's see what else they can do." The group murmured in agreement, their interest piqued despite themselves. It was clear that the earlier display had left an impression. They wanted to know more about these dogs who had turned their leader into a stumbling mess. Emily raised an eyebrow, considering their request. Part of her wanted to ignore them and walk away, but another part saw an opportunity. These men might never admit it aloud, but they respected skill and strength when they saw it. If she could show them just how disciplined and capable Max and Luna truly were, maybe they'd stop judging her based on stereotypes and start seeing her for who she really was, a professional dedicated to her craft. "Fine," Emily said finally, setting her coffee cup aside. Her voice was calm but firm, commanding attention without raising its volume. "But let's get one thing straight. You don't disrespect my dogs again. Got it?" Razor hesitated for a split second before nodding gruffly. His gang followed suit, exchanging uncertain glances. Whatever bravado they'd walked in with had vanished, replaced by cautious curiosity. With a subtle hand signal, Emily instructed Max and Luna to move into position. The two dogs obeyed instantly, standing side by side in perfect formation. Their bodies were alert yet relaxed, exuding confidence without aggression. Even the bikers couldn't help but notice how effortlessly synchronized the trio was. One of them whispered to his buddy, "Man, those dogs are serious business." To demonstrate their skills, Emily gave a series of commands. First, she signaled for Max to sit, then lie down, and finally roll over, all flawlessly executed. Next, she directed Luna to perform a similar sequence, adding a few more complex moves like spinning in a circle and retrieving a small object from across the parking lot. Each action was precise, almost mechanical in its accuracy. The bikers watched in stunned silence, their skepticism melting away with every passing second. When Emily commanded both dogs to heel simultaneously, walking them in perfect sync around the parking lot, even Razor had to admit he was impressed. Okay, he muttered, scratching the back of his neck. "I'll give you this. They're good. Real good." His admission came reluctantly, but it was genuine. For the first time since they arrived, the gang looked genuinely interested, not in mocking Emily, but in learning more about what made her team so extraordinary. As the demonstration wrapped up, Emily turned to face the bikers, her expression neutral. "These dogs aren't here for tricks or entertainment," she explained. "They're trained to protect, to serve, and to save lives. They've done things most people will never fully understand. So yeah, they're good, but they're also loyal, disciplined, and brave. Qualities I expect anyone working with them to appreciate." Her words struck a chord. Whether it was pride, admiration, or simply newfound respect, something shifted in the bikers' attitudes. Razor exchanged a glance with his crew, silently acknowledging that they'd underestimated Emily and paid the price for it. What started as a confrontation was slowly turning into something else entirely, a lesson none of them would soon forget. As the demonstration came to an end, the atmosphere in the parking lot had shifted dramatically. The bikers, who had arrived with cocky grins and mocking attitudes, now stood quiet and thoughtful. Their earlier jeers had faded into murmurs of admiration as they watched Max and Luna perform tasks with precision and grace. Even Razor, the self-proclaimed leader of the group, seemed humbled by what he'd witnessed. His usual swagger was replaced by a cautious curiosity, his eyes darting between Emily and her dogs. One of the younger bikers stepped forward hesitantly, breaking the silence. "So, how long does it take to train him like that?" he asked, his voice tinged with genuine interest. Emily glanced at him, surprised but pleased by the question. She could tell this wasn't just idle chatter. It was a sign that the bikers were starting to see her and her dogs in a new light. "It takes years," she replied, kneeling beside Max and Luna to give them each a reassuring pat. "It's not just about teaching them commands. It's about building trust, discipline, and teamwork. Every day is training, whether we're on a mission or just practicing the basics." Her tone was calm but confident, and she spoke with the kind of authority that comes from experience. They're not born knowing how to do all this. It's hard work, for them and for me. The young biker nodded slowly, clearly impressed. "Must be tough," he said. "I mean, I can barely get my dog to sit when I tell him to." This comment drew a few chuckles from his crew, easing some of the tension that still lingered in the air. For the first time since their arrival, the mood felt lighter, less hostile. Razor, however, wasn't quite ready to let go of his pride. He crossed his arms over his chest and gave Emily a skeptical look. Yeah, they're trained. We get it. But how do we know they're really as tough as you say? Anybody can teach a dog tricks, right? His words carried a hint of defiance, but there was also a note of uncertainty beneath them. He wanted to test her, to push further, but he no longer sounded so sure of himself. Emily sighed inwardly, recognizing the challenge for what it was. She didn't need to prove anything to these men, but she also knew that action spoke louder than words. Rising to her feet, she signaled for Max and Luna to stay put while she addressed the bikers directly. "All right," she said evenly. "You want proof. Fine. I'll show you something real. But remember, you asked for it." With that, she turned to Max and gave him a subtle hand signal. Instantly, Max sprang into action, running toward a nearby row of parked motorcycles. The bikers tensed, unsure of what was happening. Was the dog going to damage their prized bikes? Before anyone could react, Max stopped abruptly next to one of the motorcycles and began sniffing around its base. Within seconds, he located a small object hidden beneath the kickstand. A set of keys Emily had secretly placed there earlier as part of her routine training exercises. Max grabbed the keys gently in his mouth and trotted back to Emily, dropping them at her feet. The bikers stared in amazement, their jaws slightly agape. "That's impossible," one of them exclaimed. "How'd he know where to look?" "He didn't know," Emily explained. "He followed my command and used his instincts. That's what makes them so valuable. They combine training with natural ability. And they never stop surprising me." But Emily wasn't done yet. Turning to Luna, she gave another signal. This time, she pointed to a distant tree at the edge of the parking lot. Without hesitation, Luna sprinted toward it, weaving through obstacles like trash cans and picnic tables with ease. When she reached the tree, she paused briefly before returning to Emily's side, carrying a small toy Emily had tucked away earlier as part of her setup. The crowd erupted into applause, even Razor clapping reluctantly. By the time the demonstration ended, the bikers' skepticism had transformed into awe. They now understood that Max and Luna weren't just well-trained pets. They were highly skilled partners capable of handling real-world challenges. As Emily knelt once more to praise her dogs, she caught Razor glancing at her with newfound respect. Whatever walls had existed between them before were beginning to crumble, replaced by a shared appreciation for the bond between handler and dog. The applause from the bikers lingered in the air. A mixture of admiration and disbelief still etched on their faces. Razor, who had been the loudest skeptic just moments ago, stood quietly now, his arms crossed, but his expression thoughtful. The rest of the gang exchanged glances, some nodding approvingly, while others whispered to each other about what they'd just witnessed. It was clear that something had shifted, not just in their attitude toward Emily and her dogs, but in how they viewed themselves. One of the older bikers, a grizzled man with a long gray beard and a patch-covered vest, stepped forward. His voice carried a gravelly tone as he spoke. "You know," he said, scratching his chin, "I've seen police dogs work before, but nothing like this. These two, there's something else. He gestured toward Max and Luna, who were sitting calmly by Emily's side, their tails wagging slightly at the praise they'd received. How do you get him to listen so well? I mean, my mutt barely listens when I tell him not to chew up my boots. Emily couldn't help but smile faintly at the question. She knelt beside Max and Luna, giving them each a gentle scratch behind the ears before responding. It's all about trust, she explained. They have to know that I'll always protect them, guide them, and treat them fairly. In return, they give me everything they've got. Loyalty, focus, and courage. It's a partnership, not a one-sided relationship. Her words seemed to resonate with the group, especially Razor. He uncrossed his arms and took a step closer, his usual bravado replaced by genuine curiosity. So, what happens if someone messes with them? Like, tries to hurt them or something? He asked, his voice quieter now, almost cautious. Emily looked up at him, her expression serious. If anyone threatens my dogs, or me, they'll defend themselves without hesitation. But it's not just about aggression. They're trained to assess situations, to act only when necessary. Their goal isn't to hurt. It's to neutralize danger and keep everyone safe. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. That's why respect matters. If you treat them with care and understanding, they'll respond in kind. Cross that line, though. She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. Razor nodded slowly, glancing down at Max and Luna. For the first time, there was no mockery in his gaze, only a flicker of admiration. Guess we learned our lesson today, he admitted gruffly, earning murmurs of agreement from his crew. One of the younger bikers chimed in. Yeah, I ain't gonna make fun of them again. Not after seeing what they can do. As the conversation continued, the atmosphere grew lighter. The tension that had filled the parking lot earlier had dissipated entirely, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Emily noticed that the bikers weren't just asking questions about her dogs. They were genuinely interested in learning more about her life and experiences as a canine handler. Some even shared stories of their own pets, laughing about the mischief their unruly animals got into at home. At one point, Razor surprised everyone, including himself, by extending an invitation. Hey, you ever feel like coming by the clubhouse sometime? We'd love to see more of what your dogs can do. Maybe teach us a thing or two about handling our own mutts better. The offer caught Emily off guard, but she appreciated the gesture. After a brief pause, she nodded. Sure. I think Max and Luna would enjoy showing off a bit more. Just remember, respect is key. The bikers erupted into cheers, clearly excited by the idea. As the group began to disperse, heading back to their motorcycles, Razor lingered behind for a moment. He approached Emily cautiously, holding out his hand. Look, sorry about earlier. Guess I misjudged you. And your dogs. His apology was awkward but sincere, and Emily accepted it with a firm handshake. Apology accepted, she said simply, offering him a small smile. As Emily gathered her things and prepared to leave, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. What had started as a confrontation had turned into an opportunity to bridge a gap between two very different worlds. The lesson Max and Luna had taught the bikers wasn't just about discipline or skill. It was about respect, teamwork, and the power of trust. And as she walked away with her loyal companions by her side, Emily knew that this encounter would stay with all of them for a long time. A few days later, Emily found herself standing outside the biker clubhouse, a weathered wooden building surrounded by rows of gleaming motorcycles. She had debated whether or not to accept Razor's invitation, but curiosity and a desire to build bridges won out. Max and Luna trotted confidently beside her, their tails wagging slightly as they took in the unfamiliar surroundings. The sight of the two disciplined German shepherds drew immediate attention from the bikers milling about outside. Razor emerged from the crowd first, his usual swagger tempered by an uncharacteristic nervousness. Hey, he said, nodding toward Emily and her dogs. Didn't think you'd actually show up. His tone was lighter now, almost friendly, and it carried none of the hostility from their earlier encounter. Behind him, the other bikers gathered, some leaning against their bikes while others stood with arms crossed, watching intently. "I promised I would," Emily replied coolly, giving Max and Luna a reassuring pat. "Besides, it's good for them to meet new people, and for people to understand what they're capable of." Her words earned a round of chuckles from the group, breaking the ice further. One of the younger bikers stepped forward, holding out a hand tentatively. "Can I, pet, he asked, glancing at Emily for permission. Emily nodded, signaling for Luna to sit. "Sure, but go slow. Let her sniff your hand first." The young biker followed her instructions carefully, extending his hand toward Luna's nose. When she gave him a soft sniff and then leaned into his touch, his face lit up with delight. "Wow, she's so calm," he exclaimed, earning approving nods from his friends. Encouraged by his success, others began lining up to greet the dogs, each one marveling at how gentle yet alert they were. Once everyone had settled down, Emily decided to give the bikers a more formal demonstration. She led Max and Luna through a series of advanced commands, showcasing their speed, precision, and teamwork. They performed obstacle courses using makeshift props like overturned barrels and ropes strung between posts. At one point, Emily even hid a set of keys under a pile of helmets, challenging Max to find them. Without hesitation, Max sniffed around methodically before uncovering the hidden item, drawing cheers from the bikers. But the highlight came when Emily introduced a mock scenario, a simulated search and rescue operation. Using Razor as the missing person, she instructed him to hide behind a stack of crates inside the clubhouse. With a quick signal, she sent Luna to locate him. The dog moved with purpose, her keen nose leading her straight to Razor within seconds. When Luna returned to Emily and barked sharply to indicate success, the entire group erupted into applause. Even Razor couldn't contain his excitement. "Man, that was awesome," he shouted, stepping out from his hiding spot. "Your dogs are seriously incredible." His enthusiasm was contagious, and soon the bikers were peppering Emily with questions about training techniques, diet, and daily routines. She answered patiently, sharing tips on basic obedience and explaining the importance of consistency and patience. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere became increasingly relaxed. Some of the bikers brought out snacks and drinks, offering Emily a cold soda as a token of gratitude. Others shared stories about their own pets, dogs that chewed furniture, cats that knocked over lamps, and laughed about how far they were from being as disciplined as Max and Luna. Through it all, Emily felt a growing sense of connection with the group. These men, rough around the edges though they might be, weren't so different from her after all. They valued loyalty, strength, and teamwork, the same qualities she cherished in her canine partners. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the clubhouse yard, the event had transformed into something unexpected, a celebration of mutual respect. As Emily prepared to leave, Razor approached her once more, this time with a broad grin. "Thanks for coming," he said sincerely. "You've changed the way we see things, not just about dogs, but about respecting skill and dedication." Emily smiled back, knowing that today wasn't just about teaching lessons, it was about forging understanding. And as she walked away with Max and Luna by her side, she couldn't help but feel proud of the bond they'd helped create between such unlikely allies. Weeks passed, and Emily's visit to the biker clubhouse became a topic of conversation not just among the bikers, but also within her own military unit. Word spread quickly about how Max and Luna had won over a group of hardened men who once mocked them. The story took on a life of its own, with some soldiers teasing Emily good-naturedly about her new fan club. But for Emily, it wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about the unexpected friendships that had blossomed from an unlikely encounter. The bikers didn't forget their promise either. A few days after Emily's visit, Razor showed up at the diner where their initial confrontation had taken place. This time, however, he came alone, and with a peace offering. 2 custom-made leather collars engraved with Max and Luna's names. The craftsmanship was impeccable, each collar adorned with intricate designs that reflected both the dog's discipline and their loyalty. Razor handed them to Emily awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck as he spoke. "Just wanted to say thanks again," he muttered, "and maybe apologize one more time." Emily accepted the gift graciously, touched by the effort behind it. She slipped the collars onto Max and Luna right then and there, earning approving barks from the dogs. Razor watched with a small smile, clearly pleased with himself. From that day forward, whenever Emily stopped by the diner, Razor and his gang greeted her warmly, asking about her work and marveling at the latest feats of her 4-legged partners. But the connection went deeper than casual pleasantries. Over time, the bikers began seeking Emily's advice, not just about dogs, but about leadership and teamwork. They admired the way she commanded respect without raising her voice, the way she led with quiet confidence. One evening, during another visit to the clubhouse, Razor pulled her aside. "You ever think about teaching people stuff like this?" he asked, gesturing toward Max and Luna. "Not everyone gets to work with dogs, but we could all use a lesson in being better leaders or teammates." Emily thought about it for a moment before nodding. "I guess I never really considered it," she admitted. "But if you guys are serious, I'd be happy to help. It's not rocket science, though. Most of it comes down to trust, communication, and patience. Things anyone can learn if they're willing to put in the effort." That sparked an idea. Over the following weeks, Emily started organizing informal training sessions at the clubhouse. She brought along some basic equipment, tug ropes, agility cones, and scent detection kits, and invited the bikers to participate. At first, they worked with their own pets, many of which were unruly mutts with little prior training. But under Emily's guidance, even the most stubborn dogs began showing improvement. The bikers cheered every small victory, celebrating when a dog mastered a simple command like sit or stay. Max and Luna played key roles in these sessions, serving as role models for the other dogs. Their calm demeanor and sharp focus inspired both humans and animals alike. Watching them work together seamlessly, the bikers gained a new appreciation for the bond between handler and dog. "It's like they're reading your mind," one of them remarked during a session. "How do you even do that?" "It's not magic," Emily replied with a laugh. "It's years of practice and a lot of trial and error. But the most important thing is consistency. If you keep changing the rules, your dog will get confused. Stick to what works, and they'll follow you anywhere." As the weeks turned into months, the transformation within the biker group became undeniable. They weren't just rowdy outsiders anymore. They were a team, united by shared experiences and newfound skills. Even Razor, once quick-tempered and reckless, had mellowed considerably. He often joked that he owed his improved leadership style to Emily and her dogs. "If Max and Luna can teach a guy like me how to lead, imagine what they could do for the world," he quipped during one gathering. For Emily, the entire experience was deeply rewarding. What had started as a tense standoff had evolved into something far greater, a bridge between worlds. Through Max and Luna, she had shown the bikers the value of discipline, respect, and unwavering loyalty. And in return, they had given her something equally valuable, a reminder that understanding and growth could come from the most unexpected places. As she left the clubhouse after yet another successful session, Emily felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for her dogs, but for the journey they had all embarked upon together. Months had passed since that fateful day of the diner, and Emily's life, and the lives of Razor and his gang, had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The bond forged between the military handler and the bikers had grown stronger with each passing week. What began as a tense standoff had blossomed into a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Max and Luna weren't just admired by the bikers anymore. They were beloved, their presence always greeted with smiles, pats, and occasional treats smuggled from the clubhouse kitchen. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emily returned to the biker clubhouse for what would be her final visit before heading back to active duty. Her deployment orders had come through earlier that week, and while she was proud to serve, she couldn't deny the pang of sadness she felt leaving behind the unlikely family she'd found among these rough-and-tumble men. As she pulled up to the clubhouse, she was greeted by the sight of Razor and his crew waiting outside, lined up like an honor guard. Their motorcycles gleamed in the sunlight, and a banner hung above the entrance reading, "Thanks, Emily and Team Max Luna." Emily stepped out of her truck, Max and Luna bounding happily beside her. The moment her boots hit the ground, the bikers erupted into cheers, clapping and whistling, as if welcoming home a hero. Razor stepped forward, holding something wrapped in brown paper. "We wanted to give you something to remember us by," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He handed her the package, and when she unwrapped it, she found a framed photo of herself, Max, and Luna surrounded by the entire biker gang. In the picture, everyone was smiling, even Razor, who rarely let his tough exterior slip. "This means a lot," Emily said softly, clutching the frame to her chest. "I'll never forget any of you, or the lessons we've shared." Razor cleared his throat, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "You taught us more than just how to train dogs, Emily. You showed us what real strength looks like, not brute force, but patience, loyalty, and teamwork. We might not wear uniforms or carry badges, but we're better because of you." His words earned murmurs of agreement from the others, some of whom wiped away tears discreetly. Before leaving, Emily gave one last demonstration with Max and Luna, guiding them through a series of advanced commands. The bikers watched intently, cheering louder than ever as the dogs executed every move flawlessly. When the session ended, Emily knelt beside Max and Luna, giving them each a long hug. "Take care of yourselves," she told the bikers, rising to her feet, "and keep practicing with your own dogs. Remember, trust is everything." As she drove away, the sound of revving engines followed her, a farewell salute from Razor and his gang. In her rearview mirror, she saw them standing together, waving until she disappeared from view. It was a moment she knew she'd cherish forever. In the months that followed, Emily often thought about the bikers and their transformation. She received letters and photos from them, showing off their progress with their own pets and sharing stories of how her teachings had impacted their lives. One letter from Razor stood out. "We're not perfect, but we're trying. Thanks for believing in us when no one else did." Back at the base, Emily carried those memories with her, drawing strength from the knowledge that even the toughest hearts could change when given a chance. Max and Luna, ever loyal, seemed to sense her nostalgia, pressing close to her side during quiet moments. Together, they continued their mission, knowing they'd left an indelible mark on the world. One lesson, one bark, and one wagging tail at a time. Their story became legend, not just within the military, but among the bikers too. It proved that respect and understanding could bridge any divide, no matter how wide. And though Emily moved on to new challenges, the bond she'd created remained unbroken, a testament to the power of trust, teamwork, and the extraordinary connection between humans and their canine companions.